Despite her seemingly bold and brash demeanour, with muscles that were literally award-winning and a loyal following of people that would pay her to throw them around, Sally McNeil was trapped in a terrible cycle of abuse. This would all reach its breaking point on Valentine's Day in 1994, when Sally McNeil would shoot her husband dead following yet another round of abuse. The lengthy and challenging trial that ensued focused on two questions. Was she acting in self-defense, or was she a resentful wife with her own anger issues and history of violence who was lashing out at her husband who was having an affair with another woman? Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Horror House. I apologise in advance if my voice sounds terrible because I'm currently dying, but the things we do for you. Though that being said, we do appreciate you. We do love you. We do love the support you give us week in and week out, and we genuinely wouldn't be able to do this without you. So thank you, and you're awesome. Don't forget that. Amy, how are you doing today, my lovely?
I'm alright. I don't want to go too over the top and be like, I'm perfectly healthy, thanks, Dom, but I am. And yeah, sorry about it. I'm a little bit concerned you're not going to make it to the end of the episode, to be honest, mate, but, you know, we'll do what we do. We'll do what we do.
That sounds like a challenge. So now I'm going to make it my mission to make it to the end of the episode.
That's the only reason I said it.
The gauntlet has been laid.
Yeah, it's the motivation.
Oh dear. So we spoke about it off mic, but last week's episode did crazy things on the YouTube channel. So, like, it's sitting at like 700 views or something. We got like 20 subscribers like from that episode.
Welcome. Hello.
Obviously, people. Yes, if you're a new subscriber, hello. But yeah, that was unexpected. But thank you to everyone who's watched, who's liked, who's shared, who's commented. We got some really nice comments. Actually, we got a few really nice ones.
And that makes a lovely change.
It does. It does. I'm going to be intrigued to see what comments end up being left on this.
Yeah.
We'll see. But yeah, thank you for the love on that episode. It was greatly appreciated. So, Amy, how much do you know about the case of Killer Sally, or Sally McNeil? Have you seen the documentary? Do you know a lot? Do you know a little? What's the situation?
I have seen the documentary. I think I watched it maybe as it was put on Netflix, so a fair while ago. And I've resisted the temptation to watch it again because I want to come into this with it not fresh in my mind. But I remember watching it and having quite strong opinions. So I'm wondering if I'm still going to feel the same when we talk about it.
Okay.
It's definitely an interesting case, though. It's one that
Yes.
I think divides people. Hell, we like talking about those over here.
Oh, yeah. We like the spicy episodes every so often.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have watched the documentary a few times. That was very good. Definitely, I think it's a case that you're going to fall one side or the other. I don't think there's really a middle ground much in this one. I think it's quite black and white. So it would be intriguing to see what people do think, and obviously I'll be intrigued to see what you think at the end of the episode as well, if it's changed your mind, if it's, you know, giving you some new insight and all that good stuff. I do also want to shout out the documentary as well. Killer Sally on Netflix. It's, like I said, it's a great documentary. obviously this episode is going to be a sort of summary. The documentary is 3 episodes, I believe. So,
I think so, yeah.
once you've listened to this and you want some more information, you want to hear from Sally herself, who obviously is a focal point in the documentary, and has a lot of interviews with Sally herself, please do go and watch it. Last time I checked, it's still on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's been taken off. If it has been taken off, I'm sorry for the false advertising. Don't come after me.
UK Netflix at least. It's definitely still on UK Netflix. It came up last night.
Yeah.
When I was browsing, and I looked at it and thought, shall I watch it? No, don't watch it. So it's definitely still on there as of yesterday. In the UK, we don't know about the countries. This would have been, if we were sponsored by one, which we are not, this would have been a great point to talk about a VPN. So VPN providers, if you're listening and you want to sponsor us, it just comes naturally that we want to, help you. So, give us a call. We're just at the other end of the phone.
Yeah, absolutely. NordVPN, come hit us up.
Come at us.
Come work with
VPN
us.
providers are available. Any of you are welcome to give us a ring.
Okie dokie. So, without further ado, are you ready to get into this week's episode, Ames, and hear about the case, the very complicated trial, and its outcome?
I'm as ready as I could be.
Lovely stuff. Cool. So, born Sally Dempsey on the 10th of September 1960 in Allentown, Pennsylvania, Sally McNeil recalls a difficult childhood filled with constant exposure to violence, to the point where she believed it was a normal occurrence in every household. Richard Dale Dempsey, Sally's father, was a rampant alcoholic who routinely beat her mother. The Killer Sally documentary states that her mother remarried when Sally was 3 years old and would go on to have 2 kids, Judy and Jill, who are Sally's half-sisters. And yet again, we're out the gates very, very quickly with a dickhead parent, and which probably set the tone for Sally's later life.
Yeah, I mean, we tend to make that argument when it comes to serial killers as opposed to people like this, but I mean, there's always something that's a potential trigger, and I guess this falls into that as well, so dear.
So McNeil participated in the track and field, swimming and diving teams at Deerruff High School in Allentown. Her goal was to become a gym instructor when she enrolled at East Stroudsburg State College, which is now East Stroudsburg University of Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, however, she ran out of money to continue her degree, and her parents refused to help fund the rest, and she would have to leave and unfortunately abandon her dream of becoming a gym instructor. While serving in the Marines, McNeil first married Anthony Loudon at Paris Island. The couple had 2 children together, Shantina and John, plus 1 additional child from a previous marriage. Their marriage would last for 4 years, and towards the end of it, Sally described Anthony as being abusive, which is a theme from childhood pretty much all the way through her first marriage, well, not all the way through, towards the end of her first marriage, pretty much her entire second marriage. So yeah, unfortunately this was normal for Sally, which obviously shouldn't be normal at all.
Yeah, definitely. It makes it very hard to get out of if you haven't experienced a relationship where there is no abuse. Knowing that, or having an abusive relationship doesn't seem like you're willing to take more. I guess it takes something way more extreme for you to go, well, hang on a minute, this hasn't happened before. So it's it builds up and up until, something bad happens, which is really sad. Like the fact that the only experience of relationships that she's got is abusive ones, and therefore that's the norm.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you know this case, unfortunately, you know that it will build up and build up and build up and reach a very unfortunate crescendo. So McNeil filed for divorce from Anthony while she was being sent to Camp Pendleton, and she was granted custody of their 2 eldest children. The 3rd child was placed up for adoption during the divorce. Due to her persistently bad behaviour, which included violent outbursts, anger management problems, and lashing out at others, McNeil was demoted from her sergeant post in 1990, and eventually she would be dismissed from the military entirely. During her time serving at Camp Pendleton, McNeil would become involved in bodybuilding, and in June 1987, she would be introduced to fellow competitor and her future second husband, Ray McNeil, by a friend. Sally and Ray would quickly hit it off and were married after 2 months. Whoa. Goddamn.
That is speedy.
That's quick. Yeah.
That
Holy hell.
There must have been some good. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, saying that, he would, like, spoiler alert, he would pump himself to the gills with steroids later on, so I don't know if it was actually that impressive.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, there
He
must
probably
be
had
a
some
reason,
shrinkage.
Maybe they were maybe I'm just being cynical. Maybe they were just hopelessly in love and couldn't live without each other in those 2 months. But yeah, bit quick, Sal. Just slow it up.
2 months is kind of the getting to know you period.
Yeah,
maybe.
You don't know someone after 2 months.
Or is that? Yeah.
This is why all of my
exactly.
friendships are 3 months long. Because then they know the real me and they leave.
Oh dear.
Not true.
Just a revolving door of friends.
I feel like all of my friends that have known me for longer than 3 months, which to be honest is most of them, are now going to be like, yeah, fuck you, bitch. I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I love you guys, but
yeah.
You don't. My point being, you don't know someone properly after 2 months. Like, not enough to agree to be their lifelong partner.
No, absolutely not. So, like I said, they would marry after 2 months, according to the Muscular Development magazine. However, unfortunately, it would only take a few days for the abuse to start, with Sally being choked and punched in the face by her new husband. So, Sally would be unable to rejoin the military, so she had to find another source of income. So she would begin charging men $300 an hour to wrestle with her, a practice known as, quote, muscle worship. I say wrestle with her. I use that loosely. It was more getting paid to be ragdolled by a very muscular woman. There was no wrestling involved.
I mean,
but if
sure.
you're into it, we ain't gonna judge.
I mean, if I was, I'm not gonna be a bodybuilder anytime soon. But if I was blessed with a lot of muscles, then sure, why not use them for something like that? But yeah, I mean, at least I guess you're not going to be necessarily in danger, because in theory these are much smaller men that are coming to see you, and therefore you could just snap them. So I guess it's a good way to make money, really. So good on you.
Yeah, and from what I gathered in the documentary, she did make a pretty, decent amount of money from it. So during these videos, she would use the moniker Killer Sally or Killer McNeil, something that would come back to haunt her after the events of Valentine's Day in 1995. Those monikers, unfortunately, would would come back a little bit later on. Ray was able to leave the Marines and devote himself full-time to bodybuilding after Sally eventually earned enough money from her videos. And in 1991, Ray would be crowned Mr. California. Yeah, he was obviously, you know what Ray looks like because you've seen the documentary. He was a big boy. He was a big boy. However, the couple's infatuation with bodybuilding drove them to desperation, and they began using steroids to gain the needed muscular mass. To get steroids for Ray, Sally would even travel to Tijuana, Mexico, taking her kids with her. Obviously, Sally would admit in the Netflix documentary she was not proud of this, and freely admitted this was bad parenting on her part.
You think?
So, at least she took responsibility for it and said, yeah, that was something that I shouldn't have done. But, yeah, taking your kids to get steroids in Mexico, of all places.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder
Interesting
why.
choice.
Are they just easier to get in Mexico? Do Mexican steroids hit different? Are they like spicier? Or why does she have to go to Mexico?
Spicy.
I don't get it.
Oh, these steroids are spicy.
These are some spicy steroids.
I don't know. Maybe they were just easier to get. There was less
cheaper.
red tape.
Maybe cheaper.
I don't know. Cheaper, potentially. But that's obviously just a guess because, obviously in the documentary she didn't go into detail. She, said that was bad parenting, and I'm not going to talk any more about it. So, unfortunately, both sides did adopt a culture of steroid misuse, which, for anyone that doesn't know, has the unintended consequence of inciting violent outbursts, aka roid rage. Times of familial bliss for McNeil and her children, who took to calling Ray dad, were interspersed with moments of physical abuse, mainly aimed at Sally, but also towards the children, Shantina and John. On one occasion, Sally states that Ray broke her toe when he tossed her across a room. On another occasion, Ray wrenched Sally's shoulders with such force that it would result in a torn rotator cuff. Choking was commonplace, and Sally would be routinely beaten and bruised. Ray is not a good guy.
No, Ray is not a good guy. I didn't even know what a torn rotator cuff is, but it does not sound fun or like something that I want.
Yeah.
None of that stuff sounds like something that I want, obviously. I mean, maybe the choking, but not in the way. But it's...
Yeah, a different type of choking.
Yeah. I don't know. I think when you look at her, when you see her, it's really difficult to see her as a victim of domestic abuse because she's just so big, she's muscly, she's strong. So you would just automatically think, well, there's no way that anyone's gonna mess with her,
Yeah.
But then you realise that Ray is the equivalent in terms of strength, but man, and it's it's surprising.
Yeah, 100%. And as we'll find out later in the episode, Sally's sort of appearance and the fact that she is a bigger, muscular woman who doesn't look like she could be thrown around and abused, that is something that the prosecution would very much sort of get in on. That was their sort of go-to tactic. Ray would eventually start having an affair with another woman who went to the same gym. Dwayne DJ Jeffers, a friend of Ray's, claims that Ray had intended to spend Valentine's Day 1995 with the other woman rather than his wife. Ray even said that he would tell Sally about ending their relationship. However, DJ warned him about the shotgun in their house, saying that she might use it, obviously, to shoot him. However, he would state that Ray would only laugh it off, which he wouldn't be laughing it off a little bit later on down the line.
You'd be laughing it off on the other side of your face. Literally.
Yeah, absolutely. And while Ray McNeil obviously wasn't a good man nor a good husband, and was prone to outbursts of violence, and he was an abusive husband, both to the children, both to Sally. Sally did have a history of violent behaviour herself, something that at trial would be used to paint a very different picture of Sally than the defence would paint. For example, in 1990, McNeil was taken into custody after she threatened ex-husband Anthony Loudon with a gun and broke the windows of his car with a metal bar. She had also been arrested previously for assaulting a mailman who slapped her son John after John got into an altercation with the mailman's son. Additionally, a club bouncer confronted Sally in 1993 for dancing on the tables. Drunk and not wanting to do what she was told, Sally would kick him in the face 3 times. When the cops arrived, she would also go on to threaten to kill them as well. So, you know, Sally is, and I don't want this to come off as victim blaming, because that's not the intention.
No.
Sally could be violent herself, which is why the prosecution, you know, very much were like, you know, she's also a violent person, therefore she can't really be a battered woman that she claims to be.
Yeah, it's tough because it's kind of like the perfect storm of, well, there's no possible way that she could be abused because, number one, she, as we mentioned, you know, before, she's strong, she's got muscle, she's not like the typical stereotypical, you know, weak woman. And then there's this where she's the one that's violent and she's publicly violent and she hits people that don't need to be hit and she's got a quick temper and things like that. It then makes it very difficult for a jury, let alone anyone else, to believe that you're not going to immediately think, I've got a shotgun.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and obviously she was taking steroids as well. So,
plus
you know,
rage.
those could have been roid rage as well. It also could be that she's sort of a product of her environment at this point. You know, she grew up in an abusive household. Her first marriage ended abusively. Her second marriage has been entirely abusive. So, you know, like I said, she is just a product of her environment that she's always been in.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of negative factors going against her.
Yes. However, the abuse would all come to a bloody and brutal end on Valentine's Day in 1995. In the intro, I said Valentine's Day 1994. That was a mistake. It is 1995. And that would be a night that would end with Ray McNeil, a bloody heap on the floor, the recipient of 2 rounds from a sawed-off shotgun fired by his wife, Sally McNeil. So I think that's a good point to wrap up part 1 and take a little bit of a break before we get into the trial and the outcome and, you know, the events, you know, that happened later on. Amy, what do you think?
Yeah, I reckon so. I mean, usually when I've got a bloody heap of a person on the floor, I find it's good to take a break before you make your next step. So, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, cool. We shall see you back here in just... we shall see you back here in just a few moments. Welcome back to this week's episode about the case of Sally McNeil. I know we briefly touched on it during the break, but Ames, what are your thoughts on this one so far?
Yeah, it's tough because obviously I'm a woman, and when it comes to domestic abuse, I'm always going to naturally fall to the side of the woman, because, you know, that's who you relate to. It's just as simple as that. But there's a lot going on with her. Like, I didn't realize how much, or how many, I should say, violent instances she'd had prior to this, like with just not, well, random people, like police officers and, you know, bar staff and stuff. I didn't realize that it was as bad as all that. So it kind of makes you think, oh, okay, maybe she's not just a domestic abuse victim in this. She's a lot of things.
Yeah, I think it's a very multifaceted case. You know, there are so many different aspects, so many different elements to it. I know one thing, I would not want to be a defense attorney on this one.
No, and I definitely wouldn't want to be in the room with her bloody sawn-off shotgun either.
So, are you ready to dive into part 2?
Yes.
Lovely stuff. So, it was Valentine's night in 1995, the most romantic day of the year, even though there are 364 other days to show how much you love someone, but I digress.
No. We like Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is good. We enjoy it. It's a fun day. It's not about not showing the person that you don't love them the rest of the time. It's just about celebrating that love on that day. I like it. A lot of people get surprised when I say that I like it because I seem, you know, mopey and miserable and not, you know, down with love. But Valentine's Day is good. However, this particular Valentine's Day, not great.
Yeah, this is the exception.
Yes.
And also I was only kidding. But for me, it's about the discounted chocolate the day after. That's what it's all about.
You're just getting your excuses in early as to why I'm not going to get Valentine's gift.
I'll send you a really cheesy card.
I'll remember this conversation.
Oh dear.
And if it arrives on the 16th, then I'll know you got it at a discounted rate.
With some chocolate, which has got a few of them missing.
Yeah. I mean, I won't be happy.
Dear. So like I said, it was Valentine's night in 1995. However, Ray wasn't spending the evening with his wife. In the words of Bailey Sarian, nay. Ray instead was on a date with Marianne Myers, a fellow member of Gold's Gym, instead of his wife.
Dirty dog.
That's not cool. Dirty dog. Sally, obviously steadfast that Ray should be with his wife on Valentine's night, not, you know, someone that he's having an affair with, would start to get ready to go out and find her husband. But alas, Ray would turn up at the couple's home at 9:15 p.m. At the time, Sally was in the bathroom putting on makeup, which resulted in Ray yelling at Sally, inferring that she was seeing another man. I mean, you're boinking another woman, so I don't know if you can use...
Someone's projecting.
Okay, yeah. In turn, Sally would state that she was going to find him so she could spend Valentine's night with her husband. An argument would ensue, with Sally accusing him of adultery. And in a explosive fit of roid rage, Ray would begin choking Sally. Ray, quote, slapped her, pushed her down on the floor and started choking her, according to the police transcript. McNeil would manage to squirm away and run into the bedroom and take her sawed-off shotgun out of its case in the closet. Sally would then shoot Ray twice once in the abdomen, taking him to the floor, and then would reload and shoot him one more time, this time in the face. Whoa.
Whew.
Oh, indeed. That escalated quick.
Yeah.
So despite being shot twice, one of these being a direct hit in the face, Ray didn't die straight away and managed to cling to life. However, he would die a few hours later in the hospital.
Christ.
Now, that's pretty wild. I'm not gonna lie. When they mentioned that in the documentary, I was like, "Holy fuck,
Damn.
that's insane."
Yeah. Although people do, oh god, this is going to get morbid so fast. So, trigger warning, suicide, whatever. Not whatever, sorry. It is a genuine trigger warning for suicide. People shoot themselves in the head thinking, I'm going to kill myself and this is a surefire way of doing it, and mess it up and survive. Like granted, they've got brain damage or they've got serious aesthetic damage to their face, but it's not unknown is the point that I'm trying to make, that you get shot to the face and survive. But I do think it's very unlikely. Like, no one's shooting someone in the head thinking that they're going to get back up.
Yeah, exactly. So, as I said, that's pretty wild that he managed to at least, cling to life for a few hours. But a toxicology report would find that he had 5 different kinds of steroids in his bloodstream when he passed away, which might explain why he was able to get shot in the face and not...
That changes things.
Not die very quickly.
Fucking hell. Yeah. I mean, 5 different kinds of steroids isn't exactly going to blow things down for you, is it? So, it does kind of make sense.
I didn't really consider this until I watched the documentary the second time. And they mentioned it obviously in the documentary. And I was like, you know what? Would the shot to the abdomen, would it have kept him down if he had 5 different types of steroids in his system? Because wouldn't he be kind of superhuman at that point?
I don't think there's a point for any human, whether you're up to your tits in roids or not, where a shot from a sawn-off shotgun doesn't at least knock you over.
Yeah.
Would it have kept him down? No, maybe not. He might have had enough adrenaline in his system and steroids in his system to get up from. But I don't think he wouldn't have stayed standing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that maybe sounds like a minor point, but there is a difference there. Because if you're thinking about the fact that you're someone holding a shotgun trying to get someone to stop doing something, then if they remain standing, you're going to think, oh God, that wasn't enough, I've got to do it again. Whereas if they fall to the floor, there would at least be, 30 seconds, a minute where you would have to check that they weren't going to get back up. Do you know what I mean? Like, you would have to go over them and see what state they were in, because they are on the floor and you need to know whether or not they're going to get back up. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm being really pedantic, but
no.
I guess if you were thinking, okay, do I need to shoot this person again? If they stay standing, yes, I do, definitely. Bang, bang. If they fall down, I might not have to, and I don't really want to, so I'll pause.
Yeah. And obviously that's why there's quite a bit of dialogue on if the second shot was really necessary.
Depends what your intentions are. If it's to stop him doing what he's doing, no. If it's to kill him, then yes.
Yeah. So, Sally claimed to have stopped taking steroids by the time of the incident on Valentine's Day, though one type of steroid was also found in her bloodstream as well. When taken in for questioning, Sally would freely admit to shooting her husband twice, claiming it was in self-defense, and laid out the events of that evening. When she was charged with first-degree murder, her children were placed in a care facility and later moved in with their mother's parents, where they spent the remainder of their early years. Sally's bail was set at $100,000, and out of loyalty, this was paid for by McNeil's wrestling clients and others from the muscle worship community. She does mention that in the documentary, and obviously, she says that, the men in the videos were seen as creeps and disgusting and degenerates and all that stuff. But she was like, they were never disrespectful, and obviously they all got together and paid the bail for me. So she was obviously very thankful for that.
Yeah.
During her trial, the defense for Sally would state that she was a battered woman who had only killed her husband out of fear that eventually he would kill her during one of his many bouts of roid rage. She was a woman that had been beaten and battered throughout her marriage to Ray, and she had finally reached a breaking point. However, Dan Goldstein, the prosecutor on the case, did not believe that Sally McNeil, a strong, muscular woman, was the battered victim that she claimed to be. In her testimony, she portrayed Ray as a jealous, unfaithful, steroid-addicted man who was prone to, as I said, roid rage. Goldstein, however, described Sally as, quote, anything but a battered wife. She is one of the most violent persons I have ever prosecuted. Strong words.
Very strong word.
Very, very strong words.
Although, she has had quite a few violent episodes, more than the average person. And I do mean person there, not just woman, like more than the average person. So, she's not unviolent. No, she's had her own instances and moments of violence towards others. And like I said earlier, the prosecution would really hem in on this as their, go-to strategy to get a first-degree murder charge to stick. The prosecution dismantled Sally's lifestyle, which is generally associated with men, claiming that as a bodybuilder and a Marine, she had aggressive tendencies by nature and had planned to kill Ray from the very beginning. Her past instances of violence were also used to illustrate her violent tendencies and persuade the jury that Sally could not have been the battered woman the defense stated that she was. They also painted Sally to be a jealous wife, someone who was more in love with her husband than he was with her, and couldn't handle the fact that he wanted to leave her. In Sally's mind, if she couldn't have Ray, nobody else could. Prosecutors would claim that Sally couldn't be a, quote, beaten woman because essentially, quote, well, just look at her. Further evidence surfaced that would cast doubt on the veracity of Sally's account, including her body language during the initial police interview and the trajectory of the rounds fired into Ray. Blood spatter would be present on the inside of their living room lampshade, going in an upwards trajectory, showing that Ray had already hit the floor when Sally had gone back to get more rounds reloaded and fired the second shot to the face. And in a particularly damaging salvo for Sally, her Killer Sally videos were made admissible by court, allowing them to be entered into evidence. Being shown in the videos in army gear, calling herself Killer Sally and holding the shotgun that she used to kill her husband, the prosecution would say that this would portray a picture of someone who was not just a persona for the camera, not just a character in some home movies, yet the person that Sally really was. And in the documentary, her defense attorney would talk about the fact that the home videos were put into evidence, and he would say that that was absolutely devastating to their case, which unsurprising, I think. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's in my head, I'm putting myself in her shoes. And if you're a jury and you're looking at me, you might think, okay, she's either this poor helpless girl who's been, abused, and she's just flipped and shot someone that she loved. Or you can look at me and think, okay, she found out that person was cheating on her, and when he came home, she became enraged, shot him, and then shot him again to make sure that he died because she wanted revenge. Now, either of those could be true. Just to state, in case there's anyone tuning in at this point and you've only just joined us, I haven't killed anyone. But if that were the case, either of those could easily be true until you look back at me as a person, you look at like character, statements from people that would probably say something like, yeah, she talks about killing people a lot. She likes a bit of revenge. I've literally got the word revenge tattooed on my arm. It's, it's a big deal. And she talks about true crime and serial killers and killing people and murder all the time. And suddenly I'm guilty. I wanted to kill that person. But in actual fact, I genuinely think that if I was in that situation, I would 100% want to shoot that dude in the head. But I wouldn't, because I just want him to stop.
Yeah.
And I think he probably would have killed me, because I would have shot him in the stomach, seen him gone down, and assumed that he'd stay there. Because you would just assume that. If you shoot someone, you assume that they're going to die. So if I'd shot him in the stomach and he'd gone down, I probably would be, sitting in a corner crying my eyes out, and he'd probably be getting up and kill me anyway. There's like middle ground in this as well.
Yeah. It's,
although I'm not a bodybuilder. So
we've
there's that.
We've mentioned it a few times, but there are just so many quirks about this case. So many things that you can look at. It's quite a, I think if you're interested in, law and criminal law, it's definitely a case that would be an interesting one to read up on, obviously in detail, not listening to a podcast episode about it, but, fully diving into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the point that I was trying to make with all of that was that and these are big ifs, I appreciate that, but if it's true that he came home and tried to attack her, then she would have reacted in such a way that anything before that moment wouldn't have mattered. Like, 'cause you don't think about the fact that she probably didn't even think about the fact that he'd been having an affair. All that's happened at that point is that she is trying to survive the ordeal that she's going through. She shot him once, and in that moment, she's either thought, I need to shoot him again to stop him, or, oh shit, I'm in trouble, I might as well kill him. But either of those things would still be the truth, whether or not she was making those videos, whether or not she'd been in the army. None of that really matters, because it wasn't, I was going to say it wasn't premeditated, but then maybe it was, I don't know. But if we're assuming that it wasn't premeditated, then that decision was made in that moment, and nothing else really was going to affect it. So I don't...
Yeah.
I think what I'm saying is I don't think those videos should have been admissible, because I don't think they would have been relevant at that point. It's like if she was a man, and it was a man that had, I don't know, was in the apartment or whatever, and Ray had attacked this man, this intruder, let's say, he'd attacked him, and that man had shot him twice, would they have looked into that guy's past as much? Probably not. I'm making a very long, convoluted point, but I hope you're with me.
Yeah. And to be honest, in the documentary, they sort of go into that, how because she was a big muscular woman, she was looked at entirely differently if she was, rather if she was a regular sized woman. That was very much held against her, that because of her appearance, people were like, oh, she couldn't be abused. Look at the size of her. And that was very much, like I said, used against her, unfortunately, because just, you can't, it's massively unfair, obviously, to use someone's appearance as a sticking point to a criminal case rather than the actual case itself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a crime to be strong. It's not a crime to be a bodybuilder.
Exactly. Yeah. So, while Sally wouldn't be convicted of first-degree murder, the jury seemed to find some truth in Goldstein's strategy of portraying Sally as a violent, dangerous woman. And Sally would be convicted of the lesser charge of second-degree murder and get sentenced to 19 years to life in prison. However, in what is a rarity in true crime, and on this podcast, this case does have a positive ending, which is good because that we don't have that a lot. We
don't. We need the odd glimmer of hope every now and again.
Yeah, we do. So Sally started seeking parole in 2011, but her requests were denied 4 times because the court didn't think she... Let's try that again. Sally started seeking parole in 2011, but her requests were denied 4 times because the court didn't think that she was a battered woman and that she wasn't, quote, taking accountability for her actions. Speaking in the Killer Sally documentary, Sally said, quote, "The last time I went to the parole board, I had to say it was my intention to kill my husband, like as though he never abused me or beat me or broke my bones or choked me. It was all me and I accepted responsibility." In 2020, the good news would finally arrive for Sally McNeil. And that was because in summer of 2020, after 25 years in prison, she was released from the Central California Women's Facility and started to build a new life at the Veterans Transitions Center. Growing up, Shantina and John would stop going to see their mother. Shantina joined the military and ended up in an abusive relationship herself for 3 years. A rather terrifying duplication of her own mother's experiences. She was reunited with Sally in the documentary, and Shantina now has a son of her own. After having his own daughter, John would sever his relationship with his mother because he was angry over what she had let him them see when they were young. John would also eventually enlist in the military and serve in Afghanistan. Later, he would check himself into a program for drug and alcohol addiction, as well as PTSD. And I said that this is going to end on a positive note. There was one positive thing in that, and some not so positive. But to actually end on a brighter note, Sally would marry Stuart Northfleet in 2022, whom she met through her Veteran Transition Center support group. Both Sally's children and her grandchildren were present at the wedding. Her son, John, actually walking her up the aisle, I believe. And the couple are hoping for a much brighter future ahead of them. And that is the case of Sally McNeil. Amy, thoughts, feelings? What do you think?
It's a tough one, isn't it? It's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
I think second-degree murder is exactly where this sits.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I believe everything. Again, I don't know this woman. I don't know all of the evidence. I don't know. I haven't other than watching the documentary and now listening to you talking about it, Dom, I don't know the case in that much depth.
Mm-hmm.
But what my gut tells me is that everything is true. That
Mm-hmm.
he was very abusive. He essentially tortured the poor woman to the point where she felt like she had no out. I think she would have found out about the affair, and as someone that has been in a relationship that is somewhat abusive and found out that that person was cheating, that is not a nice feeling. It's almost like everything else you can put up with, but how dare you do that? Like, that's the final straw, you know? So I believe that there might have been a part of her at that point that maybe didn't realise it immediately, but would have wanted to kill him. So I believe all of that. What I then think is probably the most likely thing to have happened is that he did attack her. He was trying to choke her. He was trying to, you know, she might well have thought that he was trying to kill her. So she went to get her gun, which was what she had to hand to be able to protect herself. And she shot him in the stomach. I then think she thought, well, you know what? I've killed him, or I've seriously injured him. Either way, I'm in trouble. But what I do know is that I'm fucking hangry. So I'm going to go and I'm going to reload my gun and I'm going to shoot him in the head and I'm going to kill the motherfucker because I'm already in the shit. But this will make me feel better.
Yeah.
And does that make her guilty of second-degree murder? Yes, it does. Does it make her, you know, a terrible person in my book? Not really. In fact, it makes her very relatable.
Yeah. I think first-degree murder would have been harsh. So I think second degree is the right charge. Obviously, it's just an unfortunate situation all around. You know, it's unfortunate for Sally, obviously, because her whole life she was surrounded by abuse. You know, and like you said in the documentary, she just thought that was commonplace. She thought that happened in every home. She thought that happened in every marriage as well, that, you know, the wife would get abused. Her kids would get abused. And yeah, she just got to a point where she said to herself, you know, I'm going to have to do this, otherwise he's going to end up killing me. So
yeah, I think I think there's a few things that might have meant that he would still be alive, and one of them would be if either he hadn't have cheated or she'd never have found out. I think if that information wasn't available to her in whatever way, he might still be alive. If he hadn't then tried to hurt her again with her knowing that information, so if he hadn't tried choking her, he might also still be alive. I do think that she can be prone to violence, can be very, very angry, can want him dead, but him have still survived all of that if it hadn't been for the fact that he tried to hurt her.
Yeah.
I think that was the moment. As soon as he tried to hurt her, I think that was the moment that she probably thought, no, do you know what? I'm going back on it even then. I don't think it even at that point she would maybe have thought, I'm going to kill him. I think it would have been, I need to survive this. And then when she shot him, she probably had those few seconds to think, fuck, I'm in trouble. Like, I'm in a lot of trouble here. And that would have made you even more angry. If it was me, it would have made me so much more angry. Not only has this man abused me and made me feel like shit, cheated on me, like the absolute audacity to then do all that and then cheat on me, but now I'm going to go to fucking prison for stopping him trying to hurt me again. So you know what? Yeah, I'm going to shoot you in the fucking head because you deserve it.
Yeah. It's unfortunate as well that her appearance was used as a weapon, you could say, for the prosecution. how because she was muscular, there was no way that she was a battered woman. She was just a cold-blooded murderer. And obviously, if she was a petite woman who was with someone who was much bigger in size, and she did the same thing, would she have been looked at differently? Would it have been, oh yeah, she was definitely abused because look at her, she's tiny. She had to do it.
And I think the prosecution would have very much focused on the physical side of the abuse. They would have looked at the things that she was accusing him of, i.e., choking her and bruising her and, leaving physical marks on her and trying to make the jury question whether or not that was possible. But what they wouldn't have been touching on and wouldn't have been thinking about the effects of is the psychological side of that. Like, granted, if he had hit, a regular petite woman, it probably would have done a hell of a lot more damage, don't get me wrong, but it still did damage to her. But that's not the overall effect of that punch. There's so much more to it than that.
Yeah.
And it's arguably the psychological abuse is more relevant as to why he then ended up dead. Because you can take a hit. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can take a punch and you can think, oh, well, I'm strong, I'll fight back. But it takes a long and developed amount of psychological abuse for a switch in someone's brain to go, I want you dead.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened.
100% agree. That was a nice, insightful post main episode discussion. I like that.
Woo!
I'm
that being said, drunk now.
Amy, would you like to see us out for this week?
I would love to. I think just before we do that, though, it would be a good thing to mention that we will maybe put some links in the show notes, in the YouTube notes, to some domestic abuse survivors support groups. If you are someone that feels like you might need to make use of that sort of resource, we will provide it. Please do. But thank you, Dom, for that episode. I immediately feel the need to go and watch the documentary again, because I think revisiting, I'm now like, oh, what else was going on? What else did I miss? So I'm definitely going to go, maybe not watch all 3 episodes tonight because, I've got work in the morning and I'm an old girl. But I'm definitely want to watch it again because I'm sure that I've missed something. But for the meantime, if you like what we do here, please do feel free to support us, and there are many free ways that you can do that. You can subscribe to the YouTube. Hello, new subscribers. Thank you for being here, but we would like more of you.
Yes.
You can leave a comment. You can leave a like on our socials. You can follow us on your podcast app of choice. All of those things really, really help us out. And as always, our DMs are open. So if you want to drop us a DMs, a case that you've heard about that you want us to cover, we do that a lot. We like to hear about cases that we maybe not have thought of covering ourselves that you would like us to do. So please do let us know.
Yes.
If you fancy slinging us a bit of financial support, because God knows it's the end of January and I bloody need it, you can buy us a coffee. Use the buy us a coffee link to chuck us a bit of money. Or you can go to the merch store and get yourself some merch, which is always a good way to support us. But just tell your mates. Do you know what I mean? Just go and tell someone about us. That's a nice thing to do. If you wanted to say something along the lines of, I listened to a very good podcast this week. One of the hosts was incredibly charming and told a fantastic story. The other one's got red hair, as a twat, but just ignore her. If you wanted to say something like that, you can. And that would be a great way to help us as well and spread the word about what we do. We will be back next week with another episode. That is, what can I say that's not going to give it away? Do you know what? Nothing. You're just going to have to tune in next week to find out, I'm afraid. Because I can't give you any clues without giving it away. So just come back.
Okay.
But what I will say is that it's not true crime.
Oh, okay.
No,
Intriguing.
no. Something a little bit different.
Intriguing.
So join us next week. And until then, stay spooky.
Stay spooky, you beautiful, beautiful people.
Did I come off like I want to shoot someone?
What a case. No.
All of my exes are still alive. If this ever gets used in some sort of prosecution, all of my exes are still, as far as I'm aware, they're still alive. So I'm obviously not as that. Can you just stop? Oh God, you're getting called as a character witness.
Dear.
And that's why I'll end up in prison.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amy's exes are still alive. Yes,
Unfortunately.
that is 100% true.